Hey party people, and welcome back to MVM. Today I'm here with a preview for Encounter Shattered Waste. I found this because I clicked on a Facebook ad. That's how I found this game. And I immediately wanted to contact the publisher, and I did. We actually played the game together. We played it on TTS together. You probably can play it on TTS right now. And I was just like, this is exactly what I would want in my game night. You know, like if I wanted to kind of introduce people to a boss battler type game, but we're not doing this huge narrative campaign with 50 sheets to take care of and upgrading character stats. This is the kind of stuff I would want, okay? I really enjoy my experience, so hopefully this game from a small publisher, I believe it's a first-time publisher, gets enough light so you can see if the game is for you. As you can tell, I wouldn't cover this game if I didn't like it. I would have just kept on moving and said I declined. But this one here, I'm really excited to share with you, especially for our audience. So let's go ahead and dig into it. This game plays up to 4 players, and what you're doing in this game, you're fighting bosses. You pick one of the 8 bosses, you pick 1, 2, or 3 or 4 of the characters that you want. It's kind of like a character select screen. You're just fighting the boss. You put them on here and you fight them off. You're basically fighting in sort of a, like I said, like a boss battler type game. So you're going to have, you're going to be fighting them, shedding through their deck, putting cards into their womb area, and then they have this thing, the shattering mechanic, which I'll cover, where you'll flip over the card and they become more dark, and it's like a risky thing here. Or the bosses, for the bosses, they become more erratic. So that's what we're going to dig into. Hopefully you get an idea of what's going on. All right, so back down to the board here. So what you have here is your boss. Your boss will have a regular side, and then they have like a darker side like this. And you're going to basically get them down to the point where they flip to the darker side, and once they're out of cards, they win the game. This is like their little rage deck kind of thing here. They have a stamina area and a fatigue area. As cards come out, they will come from the stamina area. As cards are defeated, they'll go to the fatigue area. And eventually, when these stamina cards are out, this will flip over and he'll become vulnerable. So picture yourself like playing a, like Dark Souls, and then all of a sudden, or like even God of War, you knock the guy down, you kind of hit all the glowy bits, or in Dark Souls, you kind of get him down, and then you stun him, and then you start banging on him, banging on him, banging on him. Well, they simulate that by causing these wombs, and now the wombs will go from here to here instead. So now that'll kind of like whittle their deck down. They become easier to hit. There's less cards for you to hit, and then you eventually make them flip. And that's what we're going to show you today. You're looking at these characters, and this is where things get really interesting. So you have your characters, they have their regular health, and I didn't even put the health in the right spot, so I'm going to do that while we're talking. So you're going to have your health, their magic points, and then also what die they're rolling. There's some dice rolling in this game. You'll roll the die, and it'll tell you how many cards they hit when they hit, and then also a crit number. And that crit number can be very low, so you really want to pay attention to that, because there are abilities that some characters have that manipulate dice. There are abilities that they have that are passive that affect how you use ability cards. There's synergy between the two. You could miss an attack, like for the Ronin, they can miss an attack and do a recovery action. So there's different benefits based on the characters. There's some synergy there. But this is where things get really interesting. So you have these decks here, the martial deck, the support deck, the magic deck, and the item deck here. And what you'll do is look at the bottom, and there's a different set of cards for each character, up to 8 cards. So you'll be grabbing cards from this different deck based on the type of character here. The Aeromancer has 2 of the martial, 1 of the support, and 5 magic, because it's an Aeromancer, right? You can do some fighting, things like that. So I would draw those cards from the deck. I would draw those cards from these decks, and then I would flip them over, and then I would decide how I want to build out my character. This is a really interesting part of the game, because you're deciding the initial build. It doesn't put your character into one lane, but it also gives you an opportunity to create some synergy between your characters, because some characters are made for more frontline engagement, where some are in the back, and then you may have cards and abilities that combo with that you're trying to make up for deficiencies, or you're trying to kind of maximize where you can just start banging these things out, because bosses do get progressively hard as you go on, and you can basically switch out these different bosses and make them a lot harder, and they kind of press you through certain things. So you may want to kind of pay attention to what their ability is too, so you can create some kind of synergy for that as well. But once you choose those three things, those will be your cards, and they will not go away unless they have one of these little icons on there that says that you have to get rid of that card. But that also presents an opportunity to draw another random one, and then you kind of use it for the rest of the game until other things happen. So that's where you're going to have your hit points, your magic points, and as you can see, different people have different things. And then finally you have your threat, which you're going to talk about here in a minute. But the game starts out with these characters. They're going to have cards in here. I probably added one more. Yeah, I added one more card here. But they're going to start here. You can put them however you want. And then we go through a turn. So I'm going to flip this back over because they're in a defensive mode. These cards here are their threat cards. They'll come out at certain points. But our refresh phase, what we're going to do is we're going to roll dice according to what's on here. So for example, this one says 1. This is their threat level. If any time these cards go higher than the threat level, there's something else that will happen. But what we're going to do is we're going to roll our die for each one of these characters, and wherever they put, wherever this roll goes, I'm going to put that out there. I'm going to put a card out there. So for this one, it's going to go to 5. For this one, it says 6, but it's not going to go out there because there's no 6th row down here. So this one is good to go. This one is 5. So now we got a lot of stuff going on at 5. So we got to pay attention to that. And that would be that refresh phase. So now we go to our action phase, where the characters will have 2 actions that they can do. You can do a basic attack, which is usually 1 die. Sometimes it'll be 2 die. We'll get to the point where some of these characters will get 2 dice because they're on their shattered side. One of the things you can do is shatter and flip over your character, but we'll touch on that later. You can do the basic attack. You can do attacks from your abilities that you have on here. You can recover. Recovering is a thing where if you ever get these stats down, not your health, but your other stats down, you can roll a die and then you can take that down however far you have that die roll. So your threat will go up higher and higher as you do attacks. You pull that down. You can also pull your magic points. You can get magic points back up by doing that. So if your magic points are down to 5, I roll a 6, I can max those back out. So there's different things you can do. You'll also get corruption sometimes, and when you do that, you can get rid of one of those as well by taking the action. So you have a choice of what you may want to do there. It's one of the ways to kind of help you recover from a lot of different things you're doing in battle. But let's just go ahead and simulate an attack here. I got my Aeromancer right here, and there's 1 card in front of him, so I'm just gonna do a basic attack. I'll roll the die. Now there are things that have to do with, there's some things that you have to do with rolling a die. If you roll your crit number, you actually just attack the card and it goes right to your womb. So it's a way to kind of speed your way through the deck. If you get a crit while you're doing this one, the recovery action, you get it all back. So you don't have to worry about certain things. There's kind of interesting little things that go on when you get that crit. But for right now, I'm looking at my threat, which is 0. And if I roll that number or above, then I get to do the attack. So I'm attacking this card that's in my lane here. I attack the card. It's has 4 threat on it, and that's how I know it has 4 threat. I will move this up to 4. Now for my second action, I can move. So let's say I wanted to move. I can move 3 spaces if I wanted to. I'm just gonna move down here. That's one of my 2 things that I can do. So we have the basic attack, the move attack, the move. We have recover. We have we can also flip ourselves to the shattered side here. Now I'm gonna move on to our Ronin. Our Ronin, my Ronin is gonna basically join, this gonna just move up here like this. Or no, we're just gonna stay right here. Yeah, we're gonna move up here. So we're gonna move up front, and what I'm gonna do with this guy is I'm gonna move to the front line, and it says, and actually I'm just gonna do this one right here just to kind of give it a little bit more spice here. Let's do this a little bit more spice. So what we'll do is I'll roll my die. I'm gonna do a, let's see, I'm going to do a Terra Strike. And a Terra Strike, I can roll 2 dice, and then it says if you are in the front line and this attack hits, you deal 1 additional damage. So here we go, boom. I'm going to do this attack. It's going to be an automatic hit because it's 6, and I'm going to go ahead and hit. So that'll take out not just this card, but it'll also take out this card. So it'll take out 2 cards. Those cards go to fatigue, and now I'm going to move up to 6. Okay, all right. That also cost me 2 of my magic. I think I used it. So there you go, 2 of that. And I would use that. Now, here's the deal. As you can tell, that's a frontline thing. I do have reactions from my guy back here, Arithmetician. So if the Arithmetician has some cards that react from the back line because I'm in the front line, you would pay attention to those types of things. So there are reaction cards, there are attack cards. You have to pay attention to those as well. So I've done that. Let's say I wanted to just move down like this, and then we go to our Rift Magician. But I'm not going to go too much deeper into that. There are items in this game that you're going to use to help each other out, different things of that nature. Now I want to move into the defense part here, because this is where the enemy is going to attack back. You'll see cards right here. If you flip the card over, and it's an attack card, like a regular attack card, you'll just flip it over and that attack will happen to that character. As a matter of fact, I'm supposed to reserve these in order. So let's say there's no card here. If there's no card here, they will draw a card from their Rage deck, and that effect will happen to the Rift Magician. So let's just say he didn't do anything. He got hit for 1, he gets a Corruption card, and it raises his threat. So now he'll have this, this kind of condition card, which you could use a recovery action to get rid of. But this one says, before performing an action, performing any action other than a basic attack, I gain 2 threats. So that's pretty tough, okay? That's pretty tough. So I may have to deal with that right away. I may want to recover. Just remember, if I roll a crit, I'm good to go. Now this card goes back under, and you can kind of pay attention to some of the patterns that are going on in here. There's only 5 cards in the deck, so you're good to go there. Now I'm also looking for this number 9. If it ever goes behind this number 9, I draw a card, and that attack happens to everybody in the row. Same thing here, so you got to watch that. So this one has a total of 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we're good to go there, but we'll just flip over this top card, and since it's an attack card, that attack will happen to this front character. If it was this magic card, it happened to the back character. So we're just going to go ahead and let this one attack here. So it's going to attack me for 1. If I was corrupted, it would cause corruption. And what corruption is kind of like a pressure mechanic once you kind of flip over to your corrupted side. So we're going to talk about that in a minute here. But I'm going to take this card. It's going to go over here. Now, as you can see, things are going to start to ramp up here. We're going to have cards that go back out when we go to the defense phase, like so. Okay, I don't know why that's flipped over. And then we'll start rolling dice. Now, what'll happen now, okay, we're back into this defense phase. Eventually, these cards will go away. So this one go to 1. We don't have any cards left. So we'll flip this over, and now the enemy becomes vulnerable. And that's where we start taking our turns. And as we hit cards, those cards will go directly into this area here. So these cards will kind of start going to fill out and whatever, but they'll fill in. But if you start to hit these enemies and they have this vulnerable side, now those cards will start to move over here, and we'll start to eventually take those cards out. Now, if this enemy doesn't have any of these at all, what happens is now they flip over to this more enraged side, and this changes things up. You even get a new deck. You get a new deck that goes on there. You get a new form character that goes on there. You get all kinds of stuff. And then their abilities actually come into play as well. New abilities, new threats, and different things like that. I'm going to give you an example. So there's different characters that are like this. I'm not going to spoil all of them there. But when you flip over the cards, some of the conditions change. And that's just kind of some of the things that go on as well. Now you're fighting the enemy. It's the same idea. What you're trying to do is get all those wounds back into here. So those cards will come back over here. You're trying to get those wounds back from the fatigue, and then you're eventually going to wear them down again, and then you're trying to get all those wounds back in there. They'll draw one last card. It'll affect everybody, and then if you survive that, you're good to go. That's generally the game in a nutshell. But I want to show you one of the mechanics that happens in the game that you can choose as well. It's called shattering. So it's one of the actions that you can do. You can flip over your character willingly, okay? As long as you don't die. And I should have said this. I should have said this loud and clear. You could die. You can die in the game if you lose all your health. And you can also get down to 0. And if you survive, or you use an item or a spell and you go back above 0, you actually stay alive. But let's say you're under pressure and you like, I want to stay alive. You can go shattered as one of your actions, okay? So when you go shattered, you get some health. You flip your character over. You replace them with another version of yourself. So let's say it was the Aeromancer. They died. Boom, you put them there. And now the Aeromancer gets all their stats back. So it's like this. They go, let's see. So their health is 9. Their shatter thing is 7, so they can't reach the threshold of 7. So as they use new abilities and different things of that nature, they're going to have to worry about that number. Here it is. Now you lose all those ability cards, and now you get these random new abilities, these corrupted abilities that come into play, and you can use them, but now you're under pressure. Okay, now you're under pressure because as you use them, you're going to kind of dance with death, and you got to watch that stuff. So this is like if you played Folklore, the board game, it's like when you die and you become a spirit, and then you use your soul power, like your power, and then you dwindle away. This one is kind of by force or by choice, where you kind of play the dice game here, and you go, you kind of play the numbers game and see what works for you. Now I can roll 2 dice in this form. I got more aggressive abilities and things of that nature, but that's where the pressure comes in the game. It's a really interesting new way to look at it. I like that. It kind of reminds me of Folklore, but it's on its own. It does its thing on its own. Folks, this game is really interesting. That's all I can tell you right now. They have these different enemies with the different standees. These acrylics, they actually have cardboard ones, so I'm assuming that's going to be an option for you. But they have these acrylic enemies here, one form and then the other form. I'm not going to spoil the rest for you because some of them are big and some of them are small. They have different characters to choose from, like I'm going to say Slayer looks like somebody familiar. Okay, looks like somebody familiar from other video games. Lancer, they have the Seer, the Siren, and the Monk. These are all the characters that there are. I'm assuming more may be unlocked during the Kickstarter campaign or the crowdfunding campaign. But that's the game in a nutshell. So what am I thinking? What should I say about this game? If you are looking for something that's, can be played in a game night, and you desire to play the boss battler type of genre game, this may be your game because you don't want the full campaign thing. If you want that nostalgia, you want the nostalgia gameplay, the kind of turn-based gameplay that's going on, and you want that to play out in a thematic experience, this is definitely your game. That's why this game is something that appeals to me. And if you just want something that's not overthinking, I would say the drafting part in the beginning might be the longest AP part of the game. That might make the game longer than it should be. If you want that low downtime gameplay once you get going, and you just want to, just kind of beer and pretzel-ish kind of stuff, but still have some kind of tactics going on, this may be your game. It has a lot going on, but it's very easy to get into once you know the turns, and that's why I wanted to show this to you today. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below. I am personally going to back this game. I'm excited about this game. I went from not knowing what it was and here I am now talking about it. So if it's interesting to you, of course, I can't tell you what to do with your money, but you can make an informed backing decision based on today, hopefully. All right, party people, you take care and have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me on MVM.